Welcome in, everybody, to Sad Times. My name is Kevin, or K Crisp, if you're nasty, I suppose. I am the host of the show. So for anybody who doesn't know about Sad Times, let me give you a little primer on it. Sad Times is a show where I bring on guests each episode, and we talk about times that they were sad, upset, angry, overwhelmed by emotions, and kind of how they dealt with it, how they felt, and how those around them dealt with it and felt. I believe as human beings, the most powerful thing we have, other than what we learn from commercials, is the ability to tell stories. And the goal of this podcast is not to solve, what the people are sharing. It's about allowing them the space and the time to speak through their own story, so that anyone at home listening can feel a little less alone, find some, I read the term radical empathy earlier today, so that they understand that they are not alone in what they have and have not dealt with. And before we move on, I have to, of course, thank our sponsor, the reason that we're all here, other than sadness, which is our sponsor, Fuck Cigarettes. That's Fuck Cigarettes. Remember, when the day gets bad, if you light up a fuck, it gets a little better. Fuck Cigarettes. Go out and please go to a CVS and ask them if they have Fuck Cigarettes. Although I don't think CVS even sells cigarettes. Maybe Walgreens. I don't know. Fuck Cigarettes. Okay. And with that, let's get to today's guest. This is my friend who I've known since she was born, I believe, or right around there. Her name is Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea, how are you?
Hi, Kevin. I'm doing great. How about you?
Well, other than the fact that I have to look at my face in the Zoom invite meeting, I'm fine. My face is, it's really a lot of problems there. All right. Shut up, Brent. Brent's like, yeah, there are. So, Chelsea, I made mention of it. Let's talk about how we know each other originally. We're from the same hometown. Do you want to talk about kind of, where you're from, and also, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to. I was born and raised in Monticello, Illinois, a little tiny town in central Illinois, just west. Is that west? Is that east?
It's west of Champaign.
West of Champaign. So I grew up there. It was pretty small, about 5,000 people. Loved it, but excited to not be there anymore as well.
Fair enough. They have two world-renowned pizza places. I am one of the rare people who chooses Monocle's over Filippo's, which upsets your uncle to no end. But I knew you because I mentioned your uncle, obviously his sister, your mother. We were all family friends, and we met through the United Methodist Church, my parents and your mom's mom. And you were born, and I believe my sister babysat you pretty early on when you were like a real little baby. We kind of lost touch, and then you and I have reconnected over the last couple of years, and I'd say we've become pretty good friends. So I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You betcha. Okay, let's talk about what you want to share today. I think you have some really valuable stories and insight here. So let's start with we mentioned your mom. Let's talk about your dad. Tell me about growing up with your dad, and kind of how your guys' relationship was growing up and everything.
Yeah, so I would say that since the day I was born, I was a daddy's girl for sure. They tell stories about how when I was born, dad was the only one that could hold me and it make me content. So started out. You mean
like you would only stop crying if he held you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty sweet. So daddy's girl growing up too, especially, we like to mess around with each other, definitely joke around a lot. We have some funny matching tattoos, kind of just a really great
matching tattoos.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk? I think one of them's on your middle finger, isn't it?
Yep. That sure is dad.
Mm-hmm.
I got mom first, and he was insulted by that. So we had to get dad because it had to make it even.
Which I would just ask that you stop flipping me off because I'm tired of seeing that tattoo. Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing it.
Okay, then. So you guys, you shared some tattoos, and so your dad and your mom and you went to high school in Monticello, right?
That's correct. I did. I went to high school in Monticello. I actually dropped out the end of my junior year.
Wow. Okay. And why did you do that?
I did that because my parents were taking the move to Haiti so that they could work at an orphanage.
The country Haiti.
Yes, the country Haiti.
As opposed to the way I feel about Brent, which is full of Haiti. Okay, well, wait a minute. So an orphanage in Haiti, how did they even become involved with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun story. It relates back to where Kevin and I grew up. My in-laws, it's really hard for me to call them anything else but that. The founders of the orphanage lived in Monticello as well for many years. They were born and raised there. And so we had that connection through a church.
Okay. And that was the Methodist church. No, different church.
Yeah, lodge.
Different church. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So your parents met the owners of the orphanage, and you said that they were born and raised in Monticello?
Dixie was, yep.
Dixie. Okay, and that's all right. And so were they asked to move down there? How did they get involved originally, your parents?
Yeah, so my parents had seen John and Dixie talk earlier on when they were going to lodge. And then we made a church home switch to Crossroads, and they happened to be planning a mission trip. And so my mom and dad thought, they've always wanted to do that and be able to give back. So that's kind of how they got looped in on their first mission trip to Haiti.
Wow, that's awesome. How long was the trip for?
Just a week.
Just a week.
Yep.
Did you ever go on any mission trips with the Methodist Church at all?
I did not.
Yeah, the mission trips they're cool. I went on a couple. I was lucky enough to go on a couple of those. So,
yeah,
your parents go down to Haiti for a week, and then they come home, and then what happened? Well, what were they doing in Haiti? I guess that first week. Yeah.
So when teams like that go down, it's often like a mix of female and male, and typically during the day they get split up. The females would go and play with the kids and do some developmental type stuff, and then the male would go to Fort Jacques, which is a piece of property that we have, to build. So doing maintenance type stuff during the day. So that first week when they got to Haiti, they'd never been out of the country on a mission trip before, and so they got to Haiti. This was 4 months after the big earthquake in 2010, so things were a big mess still, and not the safest. And so they got there, they got to the orphanage, and everything was going super well. My mom went to get a baby. She took the baby to the orphanage or to the balcony to start playing. And then my dad did the same to follow. He came upstairs though to that balcony and was he had tears in his eyes. He was a little bit weepy.
Okay, why?
So something that we didn't touch on a little bit earlier was my dad was actually domestically adopted when he was 6. And so that kind of pulls back into the story.
Okay.
The baby's name was Rose.
Okay.
And Rose was the name of my dad's biological mother. So a name he had always kind of struggled with.
So you said domestically adopted at 6. I mean, I know what domestically means. I know what adopted means. Like this, like he was given up for adoption?
Yeah. So he was about 5.5. They were actually, him and his brother were taken from their mother by DCFS.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then he was adopted, and that was the home that he grew up in the rest of his childhood?
That's correct.
Okay, so Rose was the name of his biological mother, and it sounds like, he's playing with this baby Rose on the balcony, and Rose sounds like a very difficult name, as you said, to deal with, kind of a loaded term. So, thanks for filling that in for us. So he's playing, he gets a little weepy. What happens then?
Yeah, so my mom just kind of reached over and said, "What's going on?" And they kind of talked through the Rose situation, and it was just the first grab on Dad's heart for hey, this might be something that you need to continue doing, giving back and doing these mission trips. So they spent the week working and playing with the kids. And then to return home, they got on the airplane, and Dad just, he took the time to pray and say, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, just help me know that. So they flew home, they landed in Miami. And when they landed in Miami, my dad had a message from John Bickle, who is one of the founders of the orphanage. And he told my dad, we need you back already. Can you be back in 1 week?
He called during the flight?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he said, can you be back in a week? So that was really my dad's sign that he really took that as like his push this is what we should be doing and where his heart really was.
So I assume he went back in a week. Was the decision kind of made then and there that they were going to move down there?
Yeah. So it was that second trip really that the conversation was had that they really needed the help, and that Dad could, really do all those things that they were struggling to keep up with.
Kind of like just stuff around the build. Like, did he build things, that type of stuff?
Yeah, he did maintenance. So he did anything from like working on the inverters because power was an issue, to septic, to electrical, to all kinds of different things. Okay. Pretty much anything that needed fixed. Okay,
so that second trip, is that another week-long trip?
Yeah, it was about a week.
When then did it move on to where your parents moved down there?
Yeah, so following that trip, he came home. He sold his motorcycle. That's how we knew it was it. He sold his motorcycle, and that was his baby. So we knew when he did that we were starting a new adventure.
And then this was near the end of your junior year of high school, and then you said you decided to drop out so you could go with them. Now, was that a hard decision?
I don't know that it was a hard decision for me. I think because of the experiences that I was going to get living in a third world country, that missing my last year of high school in tiny Monticello, Illinois wasn't going to do me much harm.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to phrase, to frame it. Okay, so this is 2010. So you go down with them in 2010, and you moved down there. So after 2010 was their first mission trip. My dad didn't move until 2012, actually. So he did mission trips like once a quarter from then until the time that he moved. Okay. So was your mom going with him too, or was she staying up in Illinois?
So we kind of switched back and forth. Sometimes I would go, Mom would go, we'd go together. So it was kind of a mix on who went.
So you, I bet too, starting where he was the only one who could hold you to calm you down. I'm sure that you guys further bonded on these trips before you even moved down there then, right?
Yeah, for sure we did. Definitely. Yeah. I think it just continued to build our bond.
That's awesome. So you guys moved down in 2012 and you're down there. So you're 17? Is that right?
Yep.
17.
Yep, 17.
I was 17 in 1912, so it works out.
Yeah.
So you're down there. Tell me about that adjustment. I mean, you're a small town, middle of central Illinois, flat cornfield, soybean fields, and then you're in Haiti, a totally different culture. Tell me about that adjustment.
Yeah, so it definitely was. It was an adjustment, to say the least. I think the one thing that sticks out to me the most is becoming a minority. You come into this country where you're the smaller of the two groups of people. And I think that's something, it really just helps to put into perspective when somebody else is the minority.
Yeah. So did you feel just kind of the odd man out, as it were, I guess is the thing I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's got to be especially coming from, that's got to be an interesting and kind of jarring experience, I imagine.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think that the Haitian people too, they have just they have a different look on life, even though they don't have a lot. They're very happy-go-lucky, and I think that was huge during that transition, because a lot of times they were happy to see you and we're happy to have you around.
Yeah, just genuinely kind all the time.
Yeah.
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 So you're down there in 2012. You're transitioning into life down there. So let's go forward a little bit. So 7 years later, you were still living in Haiti. Is that correct? Or were you still there?
Not at
but
that
your
point.
parents were.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's correct.
When did you leave Haiti?
In early 2017.
Okay. And why'd you leave?
I actually got married to the son of the founders of the orphanage.
You got married?
I did get married, Kevin.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
And so going back, this John and Dixie, the orphanage founders.
Yeah.
They grew up in Monticello. They have a son who, I believe, did they adopt him from Haiti?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you met him down there and you guys got married.
We did. So we got married in 2016 and then we moved stateside early 2017.
Wow. That's crazy. So you go down there to be with your parents, to try to help, to experience the world, to try to give back, and you end up finding a husband.
Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. So you left, you got married in 2016, you said, and you moved back stateside 2017. How often were you in contact with your family down there?
Yeah, so definitely FaceTime is incredible because I talk to them multiple times a day. Oftentimes when we reunited in person, it felt silly because we felt like we just saw each other yesterday because of how much we were FaceTiming.
Yeah. Technology does two good things, and that's one of them. The other one is this podcast. Okay. And I know that having gotten to know you again over the last couple of years, I know you're really close with your mom. And I believe I've been on FaceTime calls with you and your mom multiple times. So you get down there, you leave, you're staying in touch. And how often would you visit?
I went a couple times a year, typically.
Mm-hmm. And were your husband's parents still down there?
Yep, they were. So my husband's parents and my parents lived in the same compound and worked together on a daily basis.
Okay. So, 2019, when were you, before what we're going to talk about here in a moment, when was the last time you were down in Haiti before what happened?
July of 2018.
Okay. So that's the last time. Got it. So tell me about 2019, kind of walk us through, this next part and what all happened, please.
Yeah. So, my dad had become to feel, a little ill in January, had some episodes where he was short of breath, just having a hard time, keeping up. And he was a very active man. So that was a little abnormal.
Okay.
So a little, but concerning. So definitely, they got him to see a cardiologist in Haiti, and the cardiologist there in Haiti didn't see anything wrong, but said, it's probably worth a trip to the States anyways, just to get an extra set of eyes on things. Okay.
So he booked a trip back?
Yep, he did. So he drug his feet about it first because he didn't really want to leave. He didn't want to do it. He was super stubborn. And so he booked that trip, and unfortunately, before he could make that trip, he did pass away.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So he passed away. He didn't even get back to the States. So
he, when the day that he passed away, he was actually at the airport, going through security to go to the States to get medical attention.
Okay. And so he was, did he get taken to a hospital?
They did take him via ambulance to the local hospital.
Okay. And
they did.
How are you made aware of this?
Yeah. So actually, my dad's driver, who had dropped him off at the airport, met him back at the hospital. His driver had accidentally FaceTimed me from his phone.
Oh.
And so I answered it and just kind of inquired what was going on. I knew Dad wasn't feeling well. I knew he was supposed to be on an airplane. So, it just didn't equal.
Yeah.
you
So
know,
it's
the
scary when you see
situation.
that come up.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so just talking with his driver, you know, they had got him to the hospital and got him hooked up to machines, and he was starting to actually feel a little bit better. So that was kind of the last conversation that I had had before getting the news.
Okay, so your dad made it to the hospital. They kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like, and I'm not a doctor, but neither is my sister. I just like to point that out. It sounds like they were kind of stabilized. He was kind of in a
Yeah.
stable, and so you kind of had a feeling like, oh, okay, maybe he's going to be okay.
Right. I just
Okay.
thought, you know, we'll life flight him out if he needs something done. All of that's available. You know, I didn't question the healthcare he was given at all.
hmm
And I just thought, yeah, we'll figure out what the next step is once we're there.
Okay, so tell us what happened next, please.
Yeah. So I happened to get a call. I was at work already. I got a call from my mom. I remember super vividly, it was a Facebook Messenger call with my brother and I both on the same call.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And that's when mom told us that, you know, unfortunately he had had a massive heart attack and had passed away before she even made it to the hospital.
So not long after you kind of were speaking with this driver.
Yeah, that's
Um,
correct.
And this is such a crude question, and I'm not trying to oversimplify, but like, how could you feel when you hear that news? Like, what went through your head?
My initial thoughts were this can't be real. And I think that's what I said to my mom in that initial phone call is, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And then just, you know, you lose your stomach, and it truly is the worst day I've ever experienced.
And just for, you had said that not long, you said your dad, to use your word, like kind of drug his feet a little bit to go get help. But it wasn't that long before this that you found out that he was having possible health issues, right?
That's correct. It had only been a couple weeks.
Okay. So just extremely sudden.
Very much so.
How old was he?
He was 48.
Sorry.
And no, that's okay. I think another part that really fits well here, Kevin, is the fact that he passed away on Valentine's Day. I think it has a lot to, he had a huge heart. And I think that just the two correlate really big there.
Yeah. Wow. Valentine's Day. So this is 2019, Valentine's Day. So you get the call, you're on the call with your brother and your mom. Your mom lets you guys know you kind of, this can't be real. What do you do next?
Jump into action. I was ready to do whatever needed to be done. Because mom was overseas, she didn't have any, you know, she had great friends and family, you know, around, but I needed to be there with her. So started just, you know, looking for flights and trying to figure out how quickly I could get to her.
Where were you at this time?
I was here in Colorado.
You're in Colorado. Okay. Yeah. And for those of you who are listening who don't know Chelsea, what you just said, I wanted to immediately jump into action, just help in whatever way I can. That's pretty much a great way to describe the way that you approach a lot of stuff, right? So that it was not surprising at all to hear that. So you find a flight, I assume pretty soon. You get down there. How much later?
Less than 24 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What goes on then?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we still had a really big battle ahead of us. My parents were in the midst of an adoption when my dad passed away.
Of an orphan from Haiti?
Yep, of a little Haitian boy.
Okay. And so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So unfortunately, we couldn't get a visa issued for him. And he had to have a visa to travel to the United States. he had a passport, which we were super thankful for, but without that visa approval, we couldn't leave the country with him.
And was the reason that it wasn't approved because your dad passed away and the adoption wasn't complete?
No, so the reason for the visa, they had tried multiple times for visitor visas and they were denied before my dad passed away. They were denied up until that point. So thankfully we had some really, really great connections and some really great people that got a hold of senators in Illinois, and we were actually able to get James Lee a visa issued we left 2 weeks later.
Senators. Wow. Okay. So this is 2 weeks after you got down there. So basically about 2 weeks after your dad passed away.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your mom and your dad and kind of their relationship? I mean, they were maybe 19-ish when they got married. Is that about right?
Yeah. They were 20, I think.
Okay.
Definitely high school sweethearts, though, for sure.
I remember that.
Yes.
So tell me about their relationship. So let's just say, they're married 28 years. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Yes. So I grew up in a really strong household. I had a mom and a dad who truly loved each other, and I'm super grateful for that. And to have parents that were still together was also such a huge blessing, because you don't always see that, and you see families that aren't always together. And so very thankful for that. Very thankful to be as fortunate as we were. We had everything that we needed. Mom and dad were a very cohesive couple, and definitely weighed out each other's, strong suits.
It's like what a wonderful thing to kind of watch as you grow up and learn from, because we learn from our parents. And that's such a really special thing. So you're down there now with your mom, and you're feeling, okay, I've got to do whatever I can to help support your mom. So, or my mom rather. Speaking as you, how long were you with her?
So I was actually with my mom for a total of 6 weeks after my dad died.
Wow.
So we came back to Monticello after we got the visa, and we had a service and things of that nature. And I stayed with her just until I, was comfortable kind of walking away from her. Not only her, but my little brother as well.
Yeah. Now, how old was your little brother at this point?
He was 6.
Man. Yeah. Okay. But the adoption was not finalized yet, right? But
that's correct.
But he was able to come to the States, and okay. So I know that what you just said about your parents and being such a strong foundation. You guys were, I believe, you just said a strong family. Always had what you needed. How has that led to kind of your own marriage and relationship and things like that? Has that been like a positive, something that you look to? You talk anything about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I know that especially my dad did a very good example for Steve, my husband, on ways to take care of me. And I had ankle surgery one time, and my dad flew from Haiti to take care of me after my ankle surgery because he wanted to show that good example for Steve. Wow. And so I do think Steve and I both take, all these parts and pieces that we've learned from, both of them or one or the other, and definitely use them to make our relationship strong.
That's wonderful. And how long was your dad there when you were recovering from that surgery?
Oh, probably 10 days or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've spent 10 days with my father in my life, but I haven't broken my ankle yet, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to oversimplify something here, right?
Okay.
We're all going to face death, and we're all unfortunately going to deal with the grief of losing loved ones. And I think the oversimplification I'm saying is there's the ability to say goodbye, and then there's not, right? Mm-hmm. You obviously you fall on the ladder there. So can you explain to me what that grief has been like for you, how it was initially, and how it's kind of, manifested throughout these last couple of years?
Yeah, of course. I think that before my dad passed away, I hadn't really had any close passings before. And so grief was a fairly new thing to me. And an intense grief at that, right? Losing a parent's definitely not easy. And I think that it's a whole nother level of grief. Very much so depressed and to myself after he passed away, very much so didn't associate with other people.
So you didn't
really
even want to talk about
myself.
it?
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't want to believe it was true.
So there was kind of a hard thing to just accept, okay, this is reality now and there's nothing I can do about it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think the reality fact was huge.
And when you said you were depressed, like how did that manifest?
When I get depressed, I sleep a ton and I eat a ton, and my personal hygiene isn't as great during those kind of depressive phases.
And you just, understood. So how, after your dad passed away, you're starting to go through this grief. You say you're not really talking to people. You kind of cloister yourself. You're going through this. Are you able to talk with your husband about it, or even that is too much?
No, definitely. Steve and I definitely talked about it, and we talk about him a lot just to keep that kind of memory going.
And how was Steve there for you after, this horrible thing happened?
Yeah, I don't know how I would have gotten through without Steve. He was just my rock for, going through all of this. And definitely I leaned on him a lot, and I'm very grateful that he was able to there and support me in the ways that I needed.
That's really wonderful. It really is wonderful to hear because, we all have our partnerships, whether they be romantic or not, friendships, and we have to lean on other people. At least that's what Bill Withers told me. So that's, joking aside, that's really wonderful to hear. And I'm glad that, how long did Steve know your dad, I guess is the question I wanted to ask.
Since 2010 is when they first officially met.
All right. So he knew him better part of 9 years then.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. So God, not only is he being there for you, but he's grieving.
Of course, because he and my dad were close.
Yeah.
And so it was a hard part for him to grieve also while supporting me.
When I spoke with you before, you had mentioned, you described grief to me in, I think, a really interesting and clear way. And grief is just so all-consuming. But can you tell us kind of how you describe grief? Yeah.
So I like to kind of, pictures help me. So I like to kind of paint a picture. So if you think about a room with a red bouncy ball and a red button on the wall, a big red button. Grief is kind of that red ball that's all over the place, right? It's going to jump from one corner to the next, and it's going to hit the red button. And as you continue to go through grief, your room gets a little bit bigger. So that button gets triggered a little less often. And so as that kind of continues, it's I don't know what word I'm looking for, but the intensity of the grief isn't as, you learn how to handle it. You learn how to deal with it. Life has changed. You learn, that it's okay that they're not here, but that it's okay to want to keep their memory alive.
But I think you're saying even as that room expands and the grief, it's always that ball will always be in that room.
Right. And it's always going to get hit.
Yeah. And it's
the button.
Yeah. How hard is it to accept that? Accept that it's just what it is, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It is hard because a lot of times it doesn't feel fair. I say that a lot. Like, it's not fair.
Yeah.
That I've had to endure this. And so I think that's like, it's hard. It's hard for the reality, and, this is truly real. He's not coming back. You're not going to get to see him again. I think those facts are very hard to to grasp. I think that's what I had probably the most hard time with.
Starting with what you said, I believe on the Facebook call, this can't be real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to go from, he's the only one who can, stop you from being upset or crying as a baby, to he's spending 10 days with you with your ankle and kind of helping Steve out with you, to all the great work that he and your mom did down in Haiti. I think it's just a wonderful story, and I really appreciate you telling, kind of that part of your larger story, because it is unfortunately something that so many people have to deal with. And no matter how much we tell our stories, it's hard to say if we're ever going to be prepared for that type of grief and that type of loss. So you sharing that is super meaningful. So thank you for that.
Of course.
So you said you lived in Colorado. You've lived there since you moved back to the States. Is that right?
Yep. So 2017.
Okay, cool. And I know that it was 2 years ago, you were working in a tanning salon, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you had a pretty traumatic episode there. Do you want to kind of let us know what happened there?
Yeah, definitely. I was working at a tanning salon at night hours. It was about 7:30, and a gentleman walked in and asked me for change, and then proceeded to draw a gun and rob me.
He pulled out a gun and pointed it at you?
He did.
Okay, so what goes through your head in that moment?
Yeah. So, well, the first thing that went through my head is, I want my dad. That was my, that first daddy's little girl, right? Like, he'll come, he'll protect me.
And this was, this was a couple years after he'd passed away, right? Or
yeah.
1 year?
Yeah.
Yeah. When did this occur?
This was January 7th of 21.
Okay, got it. January 7th of 21. So we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of it.
Yep, we are. So that was kind of like, I want my dad was kind of that first thought. I was also super concerned for my mom, thinking if this man does something to me, my mom doesn't need to go through anything more than we've already been through.
Wow. And this is all flashing through your mind very quickly, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's a testament to I think, at least to your family and the strength of your family, that you're thinking about your parents when that happens. So this was this guy caught?
He was actually. He was caught about 7 days later.
7 days later? Okay. So another question is, did he, how did it, so he, held a gun. You're dealing with those thoughts you have, and you just give him the money and he left, or did anything else occur?
Yeah. So I actually, started almost begging him to let me just stand outside. I like that the hyper or the
fight or flight.
I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And I couldn't breathe. And I really, I just kept asking him, like, can I please just go? I don't care what you do. I just would like to get some air, because I feel like I can't breathe. And he was very against that. And so I did ultimately put the money, he had a fanny pack, which is a weird memory. And he had me put that money in his fanny pack. And then he did exit through the back of the building.
Okay. How long from the moment he walked in to ask for change to when he left? Can you estimate about how long that was?
Yeah, probably 2 minutes or less. It was fairly quick.
Okay. So obviously extremely, extremely, extremely traumatic. Do you call the police right away? What happened next?
Yeah, so I didn't call the police right away. I think, again, that was that fight or flight. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I called a coworker and then immediately got on the phone with the police. And somebody had already reported it, and the police were on their way.
Wow. Okay. So the police probably get there pretty soon after that then.
Yeah, definitely. The police get there and, you know, I have to go through all the questions of, you know, kind of what did he look like? What happened? All those kinds of questions were pretty intense right off the bat.
Yeah. I mean, you were just robbed. And as you said, mm-hmm. you were not feeling like you just wanted to get away from it. You couldn't breathe. And then, mm-hmm. of course, you do have to answer those questions, which is compounding kind of what you went through. How long do you think it took you to process what happened?
I think it truly took me a good week to fully process that it was, again, the reality, because it's a huge part for me as I struggle with the reality that it actually did happen. So it really did take me a while to really let it sink all the way in.
Okay. And how did that manifest? Like, I know you said like after your father passed away, you became depressed, you kind of closed off, you didn't really want to talk about it. What was how did it manifest in the days and weeks after, you know, this happened?
Yeah, I definitely would say almost the same. I definitely isolated myself. I didn't go out very often. I definitely didn't go out alone because that was a big fear of mine, was being alone. So I would say realistically, I dealt with it in the same way that I dealt with it when my dad died.
In that you just kind of closed off?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, and this, as we said, so this was January 7th of 21. So almost 2 years after your dad passed away. And so
right.
Where were you on that grief journey when this occurred?
When the robbery happened, I was really starting to feel like I was in a good place. You know, I had accepted the fact that it was the reality and, you know, working every day towards, you know, kind of finding that place of happiness again. And I do feel like I was right there and then it was pulled out from underneath my feet again.
Almost as if you were starting all over?
Yeah.
So you were depressed. Were you anxious? Were you like was there anything besides the depression in the manifestation of this traumatic event?
Yeah. Anxiety was really bad. Like I said, I didn't go out by myself at all. I wouldn't even shower in the house without somebody being there. Just the safety factor was huge for me. So yeah. Did
you feel, and this is not supposed to be a judgmental question, did you feel shame that you were struggling so much? I know,
I do struggle with that.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I definitely, and this kind of covers both, I would say. I struggle with not feeling, I say all the time, I just want to feel normal and not knowing what normal truly is. But I felt like I struggled for too long, or even now when I struggle sometimes, you know, I get really heavy on myself in the fact of like, you should be over this and you should be fine. And obviously nobody outside in is telling me that. That's just myself.
So you're not giving yourself a lot of grace is what you're saying.
That's correct.
And as far as what normal is, Brent, if you could just pull up the Hallmark Channel, that'll show us what normal is. And then you made another interesting point. You said too long. Maybe I'm, quote, feeling something too long. It's very interesting because that resonates with me because it's like, what are these rules that I've all of a sudden, I judge myself against rather harshly? It's like, I didn't even think about this, but it's like, I've been doing this too long, or I've felt depressed too long, or all that stuff. And so then that compounds, right? So then you get mad at yourself because you feel like you're not following the rules, and this is not how one is supposed to grieve these things or process these. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Yeah. And it's just, at least speaking for myself, and it sounds like your experience, I'll just speak for myself, how easy I slip into that mode where I am just like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. I mean, it's anything as simple as if I go to the gym and I'm lifting a weight, and I'm like, no, this is wrong, you're going to hurt yourself. People are looking at you too. what you're talking about, something terrible you're going through in life that you knew was, well, the robbery, you of course didn't expect at all. And you can't even prepare for that. And yet you're so strict on yourself and saying, these are the rules and why aren't you doing it better? And so now you're angry at yourself and that's just making it worse.
Right. And I think that I fall into that category. I definitely hold myself to these standards that I'm not even sure, like you said, where did they come from?
Yeah, I don't know where they came from either. Brent, you got that Hallmark channel up yet? Great. Also, I do lift weights, Brent. That's for you. So how else, like now, this has been almost 2 years. You've obviously been able to leave the house. I just know that because I saw you a lot. How else does this still play in your everyday life? Like, how does this manifest, if at all?
Definitely through anxiety. Still, it manifests a ton. If I'm out somewhere, loud noises, big groups of people definitely heighten my, like that sense of anxiety. And I always seem to find myself making sure I've got an exit plan. I know how to get out of the situation if I have to.
So even if, let's just say you're at a dinner with friends, you are thinking, one part of your brain has worked out a way that you know that if something goes wrong, you'll know how to get out.
Yeah.
And you never had that thought before the robbery or that?
No, never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's never really left you in that sense.
No, definitely not. And I think part of that will stay with me forever. I don't know that that feeling of being unsafe is unlike any other feeling. And so I think that'll stay with me probably.
Yeah. And did you speak with therapists after this?
I did. I actually spoke with a couple different therapists. I did end up doing EMDR with one of the therapists for the robbery.
Tell me, in your experience, EMDR, can you just let us know briefly, layman's terms, what is EMDR?
Yeah, so and I probably don't know, I won't say it as well as you might, Kevin, but
I don't know what it is.
So basically it's trying to connect the two sides of your brain so you can process correctly. So it's oftentimes you watch a ball on the screen go back and forth, so it engages both sides of your brain while you're thinking and while you're feeling these memories. And so you do that to kind of put them where they really need to go in the filing cabinet rather than everywhere.
And it helps you kind of reprocess it. Is that kind of a good way to say it?
Yeah, that's a good way.
Again, sir, I listen. I want to do EMDR mainly because I like Pong, but also the medication and everything else is still not doing the trick, So you did EMDR, and this was the second time you'd done it, right?
That's correct. I did it right when we moved back to the United States.
In 2017?
Yeah, and that was
excuse me,
kind of pertaining to a car accident that I was in earlier on in my life.
Wow. Okay. And pardon me. So you've had two experiences with EMDR. Were you really both times were you really committed to it? I've heard that it's can be a very difficult process.
It definitely can be difficult because you're going through and you're bringing back up all those memories, and it makes you not want to do it because you're just reliving everything. And if you aren't committed to truly, doing the steps with your therapist and, taking the time and the focus and the effort on it, it's not going to work. It definitely, my first go around, it definitely did not work for me. Mm-hmm. But I think the second time I felt different about that time when I did it.
So it was more effective. It helped you process, for lack of a better term, all the trauma that you'd went through. Okay.
Right.
How long are those sessions when you did it?
I think they were like in between 30 and 45 minutes, and I did it once a week.
Yeah, and that's not like 30 to 45 minutes of just shooting the breeze. It's very intense.
Right.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that in general, I know, not only with these experiences we talked about with your dad, with the robbery, you've always kind of struggled with mental health stuff, depression, anxiety. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I would say starting probably in middle school, I started feeling depressed. And I can't say since then I've not felt depressed. So it's just kind of stuck with me.
So, when you started feeling depressed, and before you could even put a name to it, okay, you're in middle school. It's not something it sounds like you've really had really much experience with before then. How did you feel when you started to realize, I'm sad a lot, or however it manifested? Like, did you feel lonely? Did you tell anyone about it?
Yeah, I definitely felt sad, and I felt sad all the time. And again, I was doing a lot of retreating to being on my own. Kind of like I did, like we talked about in those situations, just kind of secluding myself again. But definitely didn't feel, again, I use that term normal all the time. I didn't feel that I was normal. I didn't see anybody else having those problems, that I was struggling with.
Yeah. And so you retreated. Did you talk to anybody? Did you talk to your parents about it? Friends?
Yeah, I definitely talked to my parents about it. And, we took the steps for getting on medication and seeing therapists.
Okay. Do you remember the first medication you were on?
Yeah, Zoloft.
Oh, I hate Zoloft.
Me too. I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
Let me be clear, Zoloft lawyer man. Zoloft works for a lot of people, and I'm all for it. It just did not work for me. How did you feel on Zoloft?
Like a zombie.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But not like the cool Walking Dead kind, like the kind who wanted to be dead walking, right?
Right.
I've never even seen The Walking Dead.
Me either.
Oh, yeah. See? That's what we're the most sad about, really. That's the crux of the Chelsea episode. Yeah. Zombie, right? You didn't feel like yourself. It's like, it totally, at least in my experience, and was it the same for you, it totally eliminates any highs and lows, and you're just like, Duh.
You just like do it. You do the day, and that's about it. Yeah. And
again, to be clear, I think Zoloft is wonderful, and if it works for people, I think that's wonderful. It was not my favorite in my long cornucopia of trying to do better. That's a good way to describe life. How's your life going? It's a long cornucopia of trying to do better. How about you? Well, I didn't really actually want an answer, Kevin. Well, shut up. Okay. So you were on Zoloft. You started therapy in middle school too?
I think that was later on, actually. I think I started medications before I started therapy.
It's interesting. I, for a long time, did that too, where I was on medication, but I didn't just necessarily do therapy along with it. And in my experience, I've found that the two of them together is super helpful. Were you able to? How long were you on the Zoloft?
Gosh, I don't remember, but not very long because of how it made me feel. Okay. I remember jumping around from antidepressant to antidepressant. Mm-hmm. Definitely, we danced around with them because nothing felt right. None of it was working how we'd kind of hoped.
Yeah, and what I like to tell people who have never done that or maybe going to try it is it's hard to find the one that works for you, right? Mm. And sometimes you do have to, try this, try that, et cetera, et cetera. So, and were you diagnosed at the time?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and both of those came with the word massive in front of it. So massive depressive disorder. So I was really sad.
That's pretty fucking sad, man.
It is pretty sad.
Massive? That's a bit aggressive, isn't it?
I thought so, but.
Yeah. Massive. Okay, so did that help you? Sorry, not help. Did that lead you to feel more isolated in what you had because it was said in such stark terms?
No, I don't think so. I think that it was a step in the right direction to figuring out what was going to work for me.
Yeah. Um, did you feel less alone when you understood that it was something that other people dealt with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say too that my dad really struggled, and so I watched him struggle, and so I knew how hard it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew how hard it could be, but it definitely, your eyes begin to open to, to seeing that others do struggle from it. Everybody just processes in a different way.
Right. And was that a way that you and your dad further bonded? Was your shared experience with the mental health struggles?
Mm-hmm.
And are you still on meds now?
I am. I feel like I'm on a ton. My psychiatrist begs to differ. So I'm taking Wellbutrin, which I've taken that for a long time. And it definitely has done the best for me. I also take an anxiety, so I take Prestique for anxiety. And I take the antidepressant booster. I can never remember what it is. You take it on top of your antidepressant, it makes it works better.
Is it a booster or mood stabilizer? Are those two different things?
I think they're two different things.
Okay.
So this is one I take on top of my antidepressant. That's supposed to just enhance its powers.
I see. Okay.
I also then take some, as needed medications when I fly. I take a Xanax when I fly, and just some propranolol when I, have anxiety, those kinds of things. And we've flown in a sleep pill just because I haven't been sleeping the best.
Has that made of course, do you find that to be really helpful, the sleep pill?
They scare me a ton. I really didn't want to do sleep pills just because
the addictive.
We just heard of addiction. Yeah. Yeah. So I try really hard and only use it when it's super necessary. So I find myself using it about once a week, and I get a really good night's sleep, that once a week. But I'm still getting, 6 to 7 hours nightly. So it's not like I'm not sleeping at all.
Gotcha. Okay. And okay. So, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all that. I know that's
course.
It's a very personal thing, to share. And I think the more that we as people, talk about it, the more normalized it'll become. So I think that's really courageous of you. And so thank you for sharing that. And any other meds or struggles that you're having that you'd like to share or no?
Yeah. So kind of, it's a two-part here. With the medication, I did a GeneSight study, which was a DNA swab that you send off, and it tells you which medications are supposed to work best for you, which medications are okay, and then which medications don't work. I highly suggest that. It really helped us land on what I needed.
My sister, who is not a doctor, but is a nurse practitioner, I give her shit. She's a very brilliant woman, but she has been as of late been trying to tell me to do exactly that, the gene study thing.
Yeah, it was really cool. I had never heard about it. But they give you this whole list of the different things that'll work. And so it kind of cuts out some of that, dancing around.
How long did it take to get the
medications?
Results?
Less than 3 weeks.
And do you happen to know where it was that you went to do that? It's okay.
It's all through the mail.
But how did you get the kit, I guess is what I'm saying.
My psych doctor.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. They just put in an order for it, comes to your house super easy, and then you send it back out. So
wow.
But definitely suggest that to anybody that's struggling to find the right medication for them.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So how do you feel? Oh, go ahead, please.
No, that's okay. I was just going to answer that. I guess that was kind of an off track one. My focus has really been lacking.
Okay.
And I've been struggling with my focus a lot lately. And so I, just in talking to my doctors, they decided to test me for ADHD.
Okay.
And so I was just 3 weeks ago diagnosed with ADHD.
Can I ask, what is the testing process? When you say that I've been tested for ADHD, what does that entail?
Yeah. So not, it sounds way bigger than it is. It's like a questionnaire of like 15 questions that you fill out, like rare, often, very often, sometimes, on the scale.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's a pretty recent development then.
Yeah, definitely it is. I did start taking medication for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And my doctor kind of told me that, sometimes ADHD in women can come across as anxiety and depression.
Really?
And so that this may also help that aspect.
Okay. So it's maybe, is it too early to say how the treatment's going?
Yeah.
Or not?
I don't think so. I think that I feel really good.
Good.
Feel much better than I had been feeling.
Mm-hmm.
A lot less weepy, I suppose. I just feel happier.
Did you say weepy? Like
weepy.
Kind of on the edge of crying?
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever want to cry and you need to cry, just put on an intervention. Works every time. It's like Old Yeller, but with way worse stuff. Okay. So you're already feeling better just within weeks of the diagnosis, and you feel like you're in good shape with that. And how's your focus?
My focus is a ton better. I definitely can see a difference. And like the first day I took the medication, I had 6 different lists and my day went very smoothly. And, so I definitely think that's been improving as well.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. So, we've gone over 3 pretty major things here, right? Your history with mental health, which you were, again, very kind and candid about. The traumatic events of January 7th of 21 when, you were robbed at gunpoint, and then, of course, losing your father. All 3 of these things are not easy things to share, and I really, really appreciate you telling your story and kind of how you're continuing to deal with that red ball in the room in all its forms. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure to discuss or say, on this episode?
Yeah, I would love just to reiterate to everybody that, there aren't these magic guidelines that we need to be following, and it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to call Kevin every time you need to cry, because that's what I do.
That's right. And usually I'm like, all right, what episode of Intervention are you watching? You're like, season 4. I go back to what you just said. It's okay to not be okay. That combined with what you said earlier about this is taking too long, or I'm doing this wrong, or all this shit, by whose rules? And of course it's okay to not be okay, because all of us at one time or another have that horrible feeling of not being okay. And I think the more we talk about it, the more brave people who are generous with their time and their stories like you are, I think the less alone we can all feel. So I agree 100%. It's totally okay to not be okay. I get an A for effort in not being okay, which really works out. That was actually on my first grade report card, and, well, nobody stopped me after that. Awesome. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, your stories. And I'm really happy to hear that, your new treatment is going well, and, you're continuing to push forward and learn to live with that bouncing ball and everything else. And really, really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Thank you for being on. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. Something I try to remind people of on this show, and I forget myself every day, but I try to remind, is no matter what the situation is, there's always room, I think, for kindness and grace. And I hope hearing Chelsea's story helped. And Chelsea, thank you again for being on. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time on Sad Times.